How do you manage your time? Or better still, how do you manage your life? You see, you and I are given a jar. We all have exactly the same size jar, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And you and I are accountable for what goes in that jar. Unfortunately, before you know it, you begin to lose control of what goes in that jar, and people begin to put some of what they call their urgent demands. They seem to be small and insignificant. Little things that come in the form of email, text messages, calls for help, and all of them, they take a space in that jar. But unfortunately, there are what we call the big rocks of life. These things that are, most of the times, they are not urgent, but they are important. And by God's design, they are supposed to fit in that jar. Oh, for example, there's your family. They love you and they need some of your time. There's the very important people that need your time and attention. They need to go in the jar. There's the need for time to think and plan and prioritize your life. And oh, of course, you've got your body that needs some rest and sleep and food and nourishment. And oh, there is also God. He loves you and He wants to spend time with you to nourish you and develop you and take care of you. He needs to go in the jar. And before you know it, your jar is overflowing and you are overloaded. And you say, I don't have enough time. But God had designed that all of these things are supposed to fit nicely in the jar that He has given you. Let me share with you how this is supposed to work in what we call the principle of permanence. The principle of permanence. So we start with an empty jar like everybody else. You start with a full empty week, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But the things that are more permanent, the things that last longer, they go in the jar first. You are created for an eternal relationship with God. And He's going to be with you throughout eternity. Then this means that God goes in the jar first. And oh, by the way, you have your body. And I've got news for you. It's the only one you've got. And you're going to live with that body until they put you in a box. So your body, your need for sleep and attention for what makes you feel well goes in the jar second. And then, of course, my friend, there's your family. If you're married, by God's design, you're supposed to live with your spouse until they put one of you in a box. So your spouse goes in the jar. If you have children, your job is to nurse them, develop them until you push them out of the nest. And the sooner, the better. So they go in the jar after that. And oh, of course, there's the very important people and the time to think and plan and prioritize your life. All of these big rocks, they go in the jar first. And then you allow the demands of life, the requests of other people, the things that we call urgent but very often not as important. They go in the jar and they filter in the spaces that is left. And then you close the jar and you take that one extra day, special day of rest. You see, by God's design, all of them are supposed to fit in the jar. And you say, thank you, God, for a week well spent.